And folks, well, last time we looked at the use of character arrays and this idea of null terminators as a way to establish a convention to mark the end of useful chunks of a character array. Well, today I want to take a look at the C++ string class. Now, classes are a more complex and more interesting beast than simply arrays. In a class, it's a new kind of data type where we get to specify the kind of information that goes into the class, so the kind of data that's stored in it. So it's like having something where you can store multiple different pieces of information instead of just a value or instead of just a collection of values of the same type. So it allows you to store data in them, and it also allows you to build functions, if you like, into the class itself. So you have functions they're actually called methods when we're dealing with a class, but it's the same concept. We have a routine that operates on the data that's stored in that particular class variable. So for instance, the string class allows it to store the actual text that we're storing in the string. So maybe it's got a character array with the text in it somewhere inside. Somewhere inside it also keeps track of the current size, the amount of text that you've got stored right now. But it also provides a series of these methods and routines to go through and do things to the string that you've got stored, to the text that you've got stored. So classes are a much more interesting beast. For now, we're just going to focus on the basic use of them in terms of strings. Later on in the course, we'll start working with, at least we'll get to the point of introducing how to create your own classes and define what kind of data goes in them, and define what kind of operations you can perform on them. Now, there's a little bit of new syntax when we're dealing with a class, and so we'll start off getting into our fancy new syntax for this. So, for the predefined classes that we're going to be using, you have to hash include the right library, and you declare variables of the given type. So let's say I've got a string class, I create a variable of type string, and we'll go through examples of that. But when we want to run methods, these kind of built-in functions on a particular variable, you use the name of the variable, so for instance the variable name for our string, and then the name of the function that you're going to run. And so this is something that you're going to see a number of times in the next chunks of code that we take a look at. And again, these methods can have parameters and return values. And so as we introduce this, you'll see how this stuff comes up. All right. So this is going to be in the string library in C++. So again, it's not the C string library. The C string library was the character array one that we looked at last time around. The string library is for the actual string class. So if we're using the string library and we're using the standard namespace, then I can go through and create variables of type string, right? So again, just regular idea, the data type name and the variable name. So string s, string, another string, whatever variable names you want. And the class has been created so that it provides you with the ability to use some of the common C++ operators. So we can use the assignment operator, for instance, and we can assign text strings directly to our variable. So I can say s is equal to and hello there. And somewhere inside, it's going to store hello there in a character array someplace and a null terminator afterwards. I can print out the contents currently stored in the string using cout. I can get the user to enter text and we'll read it into the string. And again, this operates the same way as cin did with the character arrays that we were talking about the other day. I can copy from one string into another. So the string class has been set up to allow us to do this. And it does make life a little simpler when we want to play with text rather than creating our own text arrays. A few of the methods that are available that we can use. One of them is length, so s.length. If s is our variable, it will tell us the length of the text currently stored in our string. And so this operates, behind the scenes a lot like that string length function that we looked at last time around, where it's just going through and counting the number of characters before a null, for instance. So this is going off, and this should return 5, right? The number of characters that we had stored. We can go through and access individual characters in the string by position as if it was an array. It isn't, but we can use the same sort of syntax. So S0 in this case would be the H, the first character, S1 would be the E, S2 would be the L, S3 would be another L, S4 would be the O, right? So we can go through and look at the content by position in the same sort of way as if we were accessing it in an array. So again, the string is something more complex than an array, but it does allow us to use the same syntax for now. One of the other things that it provides us with is something that acts kind of like the string cat that we looked at earlier, only we can use the plus operator to glue pieces of different strings together. So if I say hello plus world, for instance, so the string hello plus the string world, this actually, I do have a space in that second one, the string hello plus the string plus or space world, it will actually glue them together and return, well, it returns a glued together copy, hello world. Right? So there are a ton of different built-in operators and built-in methods that we can use. There are methods like substring to where we can specify, grab me a piece of the string starting at, position X and going for 9 characters. Or things like find that allow me to specify a pattern. Can you find the first place in the string where blah appears? So all sorts of other methods that are available, but this gives us a starting point. And again, behind the scenes, these are implemented like a character array, but with extra information. Now, because a string isn't a character array, right? It's something more complex. We can't simply go the other way around, right? We could say something like, take a bunch of text and assign it to our string variable. We can't take a string variable and assign it to a character array, for instance. We would need to use something like string copy. So if I wanted to copy from string S into a character array, I would need to use something like string copy that goes through and looks at the null looks for the null terminated spot in a character array. But again, we can't simply pass it S because S is a string and string copy doesn't know about strings, it just knows about character arrays. So somehow we have to get at the character array portion of S, or get at S represented as a character array. So there's another method set aside to do that, and it's called c_str. So this is what allows us to access, if you like, the character array portion of a string. So if you ever want to treat a string as if it was a character array, this is the way to do it. You use your variable name and then the .c_str. So just as a heads up, because otherwise you will run into errors where if you try and pass a string to something that expects a character array, it's going to yell at you because it's not getting a character array. It's getting something different and more complex. So those are probably the biggest things to be aware of. We're going to play a fair bit over the next little while with the use of strings and character arrays and text input and output. And then eventually we'll get into looking at file I/O, where we can read content from files and write content to files. Again, treating them pretty much as files of text. So this is where we'll be going for the next little while.